My name is Sabrina Walker. I'm 28 years old, a freelance writer scraping by in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I thought family was supposed to lift you up, not tear you down. But last Wednesday, an email from my brother hit my inbox like a punch to the gut. His words: I was socially unfit for his wedding, a liability that could embarrass him in front of his fiancé's high society crowd. My anxiety, those moments where I freeze in a room full of strangers, was apparently too much for their perfect day. I could have screamed, called him out, or pleaded to be included. Instead, I opened a browser, booked a quiet cottage on the Outer Banks shores for the wedding weekend, and chose myself. A place to breathe, to heal, away from their judgment. What I didn't expect was karma moving faster than a coastal storm. One day into my escape, my phone erupted. 52 calls flooded in, buzzing like a hornet's nest, signaling chaos I never saw coming. If family ever turned their back on you and they should have had your side, stick with me. Drop where you're watching from in the comments and hit that subscribe button for stories where justice doesn't wait long to strike. Growing up as the younger sister to Zachary Walker felt like trailing a shooting star in a quiet Charlotte suburb. My brother Zachary was the golden child. Charming neighbors with his gap-toothed grin by kindergarten, he'd run through our cul-de-sac rallying kids for tag, while I sat on the porch with a sketchbook, doodling flowers. Our parents, John and Jean Walker, beamed at his antics, baking cookies for his playdates, their laughter filling the house when he recounted his day. My invites to friends, scribbled shyly, often went unanswered. Mom would glance at me, sigh, and say I should try harder to be like Zachary. By first grade, Zachary's birthday parties were block events, balloons and streamers spilling across our lawn. Neighbors clapped as he blew out candles, Mom snapping photos, Dad grilling burgers for a crowd. My birthdays were smaller, a handful of kids showing up, their parents dropping them off with polite smiles. I'd overhear Mom whisper to Dad that my quiet nature made it tough to draw a crowd, her tone heavy with disappointment. I'd clutch my new art supplies, pretending not to hear, my cheeks burning. Our Aunt Rhonda Hernandez, Mom's older sister, would visit from Raleigh, her loud laugh echoing. She'd ruffle Zachary's hair, praising his chatter with teachers, his knack for making friends. "This boy's going places," she'd say, her eyes sliding past me. Once, she caught me sketching alone and suggested I join the kids outside. Her tone wasn't mean, but it carried a hint of pity. I'd nod, stay put, my pencil moving faster. Zachary wasn't cruel, not then. He'd share his candy, let me tag along to the park. But the gap widened his confidence, their praise, my silence, at family dinners. Dad would ask Zachary about his day, hanging on every word. My stories about drawing or reading got a distracted nod. Mom's eyes already back on Zachary. I learned to keep quiet, my thoughts locked in my sketchbook, the one place I felt seen. School mornings were a routine of contrasts. Zachary bounded out, backpack slung, ready to conquer the playground. I lingered, double-checking my pencils, dreading the chaos of recess. Mom would pack his lunch with notes, smiley faces, proud of you, while mine had a plain sandwich. No fanfare. Once, I asked why. She said, "Zachary just makes it easier to show off." I swallowed hard, the words sinking in like stones. Aunt Rhonda's visits grew frequent, her stories about Zachary's charm spreading to neighbors. She'd brag about his spelling bee wins, his little league home runs, her voice carrying over our fence. My art contest ribbon, pinned proudly on my wall, never made her anecdotes. I'd overhear her tell Mom I'd grow out of my shyness, like it was a phase, not who I was. I started avoiding her, hiding in my room when her car pulled up. One summer, Zachary built a fort with neighborhood kids, their cheers loud enough to drown out my music. I watched from my window, sketching the scene, wishing I could join without feeling like an outsider. Dad called it Zachary's leadership. I called it my cue to stay invisible. By third grade, I stopped asking friends over rejection, stung less when I didn't try. Mom noticed, suggested I smile more, be more like Zachary. I nodded, but my sketchbook grew thicker, my world smaller. That Christmas, Zachary got a bike, shiny red, paraded around the block. My gift was a set of markers, handed over with a quick pat. Aunt Rhonda clapped as Zachary rode, shouting he'd be a star. I drew a sunset in my room, colors bold, my heart quiet. The pattern was set, Zachary shone, I faded, and our family's love seemed tied to who could dazzle the most. By high school, Our family roles were locked in. Zachary Walker, my brother, owned every room he walked into, his charm now polished into prom king swagger. I was the opposite, slipping through Charlotte's school hallways with my head down, my sketchbook a shield against the chatter of cliques. Lunch periods found me in the library, sketching landscapes while other kids laughed in the cafeteria. I didn't mind solitude, it felt safer than the spotlight Zachary chased. Family dinners turned into stages for my anxiety. Dad would lean back, grinning, and announce what he called my Sabrina moments, times I'd frozen during a class presentation or stumbled over words at a neighbor's barbecue. "She'll get over it," he'd chuckle, Mom nodding along, her fork pausing mid-bite. The table would erupt in light laughter, Zachary joining in, mimicking my nervous fidgeting with exaggerated flair. I'd force a smile, my stomach twisting, wishing I could vanish into my chair. Those moments stung, branding me as the awkward one, the family's quiet outlier. Zachary wasn't always like that. One spring, when I was 14, a classmate cornered me after gym, mocking my shaky voice during a group project. I stood there, heart pounding, words stuck in my throat. Zachary, a senior then, overheard and stepped in, his tone sharp but calm. "Back off. Man, she's fine," he said, his arm brushing mine as he steered me away. Later, at home, he tossed me a soda, grinning like nothing happened. Those rare gestures felt like lifelines, tiny proofs he saw me beyond the family's script, but they were fleeting. He'd be back to dazzling friends at parties the next day, leaving me in the shadows. Aunt Rhonda Hernandez, though, amplified the divide. She'd started posting about Zachary on Facebook, her captions glowing with pride over his debate team wins or his homecoming court nomination. "Future star," she'd write, tagging Mom and Dad, who'd like and comment instantly. My art projects, like the mural I'd spent weeks on for the school's spring fair, never made her feed. Once, I overheard her tell Mom my shyness was holding me back, her voice low but clear through the kitchen door. "She needs to put herself out there, like Zachary," she said. I slipped upstairs, my sketchbook heavier in my hands. School felt like a battlefield some days. Group projects were the worst. I'd rehearse my parts alone. But in class, my voice would crack, drawing smirks from peers. Teachers, trying to help, would call on me more, making it worse. I'd come home drained, dodging Mom's questions about my day. She'd ask why I didn't join clubs like Zachary, who was juggling student council and track. "It's high school. Sabrina, loosen up," she'd say, her tone half encouraging, half exasperated. I'd nod, retreating to my room, my pencil scratching out scenes of forests and oceans. Zachary tried bridging the gap sometimes. One evening, after a particularly rough day, he knocked on my door, holding a slice of pizza. "Rough crowd today." "Huh," he said, sitting on my floor. We talked about nothing important: movies, music, and for an hour, I felt like his equal. But the next morning, he was back to his world, leading a group of friends through our neighborhood, their laughter loud. I watched from my window, sketching their silhouettes, knowing I'd never fit in that circle. Aunt Rhonda's online posts grew bolder by my sophomore year. She shared a photo of Zachary at a charity run, captioned, "This kid's got it all: brains, charm, heart." The comments piled up, neighbors and family chiming in. My name rarely appeared, and when it did, it was a tag-along mention, like an afterthought. I started avoiding her page, the sting of being invisible too sharp. School, home, online, it all reinforced the same truth: Zachary was the star, and I was the background. By junior year, I'd carved out my own space. I joined the art club, a small group of quiet kids who got me. We'd spend hours painting, talking about comics or indie bands. No pressure to perform, but family dinners stayed the same: Dad's jokes about my nerves, Mom's sighs, Zachary's easy grin stealing the show. Aunt Rhonda's visits brought more stories of his triumphs, her phone out, ready to post. I'd excuse myself early, my sketchbook waiting, the only place I could rewrite my role. After high school, our lives pulled in opposite directions. Zachary headed to an Ivy League law school in Atlanta, diving into a world of tailored suits and networking mixers. He thrived in lecture halls, charming professors with sharp arguments, joining clubs that hosted galas with city elites. By his second year, he was interning at a top firm, his weekends filled with client dinners and rooftop events. Mom and Dad would call him, their voices bright, asking about his latest case study or a senator he'd met at a fundraiser. They'd hang up glowing, relaying his stories at our Charlotte dinners, their pride a spotlight I couldn't touch. I chose a state college nearby, a quieter campus where I could blend in. My days revolved around art studios and literature classes, my nights spent with a small circle of friends, painters, poets, kids who saw the world through quirks and colors. We'd stay up late, debating graphic novels or swapping playlists, their acceptance a balm for years of feeling unseen. I graduated with honors, my portfolio bursting with essays and designs, but when I shared the news at home, Mom gave a quick smile, Dad a nod. Before they pivoted to Zachary's clerkship offer, he's on track for partner someday, Dad said, his fork tapping the table. My achievement already fading. Post-college. Zachary landed a job at a prestigious Atlanta law firm, his life a whirlwind of depositions and power lunches. He'd fly to New York for conferences, posting photos with colleagues at sleek bars, his captions dripping with ambition. Aunt Rhonda shared his updates on Facebook, her comments calling him the family's pride. I'd scroll past, my chest tight, knowing my own path, freelance writing for websites and small magazines barely registered. My work suited me, letting me hide behind a laptop, crafting words for clients from my Charlotte apartment. No crowded offices, no forced small talk, just me, my thoughts, and deadlines. Family gatherings grew sparse but telling. At Thanksgiving, Zachary would breeze in, regaling everyone with tales of courtroom wins or exotic trips with law school buddies. Mom would hang on his every word, refilling his plate, while Dad grilled him on Atlanta's legal scene. I'd mention a published article, my voice steady, hoping for a spark of interest. Mom would say, "That's nice, Sabrina," then ask Zachary about his next big case. Aunt Rhonda, sipping wine, would chime in, praising his charisma, her eyes barely meeting mine. I'd excuse myself to clear dishes, my words swallowed by their chatter. I tried bridging the gap. Once, I drove to Atlanta for Zachary's firm's open house, thinking a glimpse of his world might bring us closer. He was polite, introducing me to colleagues as his sister, but his focus stayed on clients. His handshake firm, his laugh loud. I wandered the venue, feeling like a guest in his life, my presence an afterthought. On the drive home, I blasted music, telling myself it was fine, we were just different. But the sting lingered, sharp and familiar. My freelance work grew steady, clients praising my knack for storytelling. I'd spend evenings at local coffee shops, collaborating with designers or editing drafts, my confidence building in a world I'd carved out. Friends from college stayed close, texting memes or meeting for late-night tacos, their support a quiet anchor. But family calls were rare. Mom would check in, ask about my health, then pivot to Zachary's latest deal. Dad sent texts, brief and practical, never about my work. Aunt Rhonda's visits to Charlotte were all about Zachary's rise, her stories painting him as untouchable. By my mid-20s, I'd learned to expect the pattern. Zachary's life was a highlight reel: awards, promotions, connections. Mine was quieter, built on words and small victories, but it was mine. I stopped sharing much at home, my updates met with distracted hums. At a cousin's barbecue, Zachary pulled me aside, asking why I seemed distant. "Just busy," I said, dodging his gaze, knowing he wouldn't get it. He clapped my shoulder, promised to catch up soon, then rejoined the crowd, his laugh carrying over the music. Our paths weren't just different, they were parallel, rarely crossing. I'd see his name in firm newsletters, his face on LinkedIn, while my bylines stacked up in corners of the internet. Mom and Dad kept his photo on the mantle, updated yearly. Mine stayed in a drawer, from a high school art show. Aunt Rhonda's posts never mentioned my work, but I'd stopped checking. My world felt full, my apartment a sanctuary of books and drafts. Yet family felt like a door half closed, their focus always on the brother who shone brighter. 3 years ago, Zachary's life shifted. He met his fiancée, Kendra Flores, at a charity gala in Atlanta, her elegance matching his ambition. She came from old money, her family's name tied to real estate empires, her presence commanding at every event. Zachary, ever the charmer, swept her off her feet with witty banter and shared goals. They got engaged last spring, their announcement splashed across social media with photos of a rooftop proposal, city lights glittering behind them. Mom called me that night, her voice bubbling with excitement, detailing Kendra's ring and the lavish party planned. I listened, my heart lifting, hoping this could pull us closer as a family. I saw a chance to reconnect. Zachary's wedding felt like a fresh page, a moment to bridge the distance that had grown between us. I texted him, offering to help with anything: writing programs, crafting vows, even designing table cards with my creative skills. He replied with a quick "thanks, I'll let you know." His tone polite but distant. I pushed forward, suggesting coffee in Charlotte to discuss ideas. He agreed, but when we met at a sleek downtown cafe, he spent half the time on his phone, fielding work emails, weddings, mostly Kendra's call. He said, sipping an espresso, his eyes flicking to the door. I nodded, hiding my disappointment, pitching a few concepts anyway. He smiled vaguely, promised to pass them along, then rushed off to a meeting. Weeks passed with no follow-up. I tried again, emailing him samples of program layouts, clean and elegant, tailored to their upscale vibe. His response was a one-liner. Looks good, but we're covered. I brushed it off, telling myself he was busy, that weddings were chaotic. Aunt Rhonda, visiting for a weekend, mentioned the guest list hundreds of names, elite connections from Kendra's side. It's a big deal for Zachary, she said, her tone implying I should understand the stakes. Mom echoed her, gushing about the venue, a historic estate outside Charlotte. Booked for June, Dad chimed in, saying it was Zachary's chance to cement his place in high society. I sat quietly, my coffee cooling, feeling like an outsider in their plans. I kept trying. I called Zachary, suggesting I could help with speeches, drawing on my writing experience. His voice was clipped, citing packed schedules, promising to circle back. He never did. I offered to meet Kendra, thinking a personal touch might help. He dodged, saying she was swamped with fittings and tastings. My text to Mom about the wedding got brief replies. It's coming together with no invitation to join. I started to feel the old pattern creeping in, the one where I faded into the background. Still, I held on to hope, imagining myself at the wedding, cheering for Zachary, part of the family again. 2 weeks before the June wedding, the invitation arrived with no name. My stomach dropped as I opened the cream-colored envelope, the elegant script listing only Mom and Dad as guests. I double-checked, thinking it was a mistake, my fingers trembling. I called Zachary that evening, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. Is this right? I asked, holding the card. He sighed, said he'd explain later, and hung up. The next day, his email arrived. Cold and direct. I was socially unfit for the event, my anxiety a risk to the polished image they needed for Kendra's family. He wrote it like a business memo, no warmth, no apology. I stared at the screen, my breath shallow, the words burning into me. I called Mom, hoping for clarity. She admitted she knew, her voice soft but firm. It's their day. Sabrina, she said, urging me to understand. Dad, on speaker, added that I should support Zachary's choice, that it wasn't personal. Aunt Rhonda texted later, saying I'd have other chances to shine. Her words hollow. I sat in my apartment, the silence heavy, my hope crumbling. The family I'd tried to reach was slipping further away, their priorities clear. I wasn't angry, not yet, just hollowed out. The weight of being unseen settling deeper than ever. The email left me hollow. I sat in my Charlotte apartment, replaying Mom's words, it's their day. Sabrina and Dad's insistence it wasn't personal. Their voices echoed, calm but resolute, confirming they'd attend the wedding despite knowing I'd been cut out. I waited for an apology, a change of heart, but none came. Aunt Rhonda's text, urging me to shine another time, felt like a pat on the head. The betrayal settled, heavy and cold, pushing me to act. I opened my laptop, booked a cottage on the Outer Banks for the wedding weekend, and decided to choose myself over their rejection. I packed light journal, yoga mat, a few novels needing space to breathe. The drive south from Charlotte was quiet, my playlist drowning out the ache. By afternoon, I reached the Outer Banks, the salty air hitting me as I pulled into a small cedar-shake cottage, steps from the shore. The place was simple, with creaky floors and a porch overlooking dunes. I unpacked, letting the sound of waves wash over me, and felt a flicker of peace. This was my reset, my way to reclaim the weekend. That evening, I walked the beach, sandals in hand, the sand cool between my toes. I sketched the horizon in my journal, lines jagged from the hurt still lingering. Dinner was a quick salad, eaten on the porch as the sky turned orange. I avoided my phone. No social media, no texts, just silence, the kind I'd always craved. The next morning, I tried yoga on the deck, stretching into poses as gulls circled above. For the first time in days, I felt grounded, like I could rebuild from the inside out. I spent the afternoon hiking a coastal trail, the path winding through marshes and low pines. The sun warmed my skin, and I let my thoughts wander, scribbling fragments in my journal: anger, sadness, but also resolve. I didn't need their approval, not anymore. As I headed back to the cottage, my phone, left on the counter, was buzzing wildly. 52 missed calls lit up the screen, a mix of numbers: mom, dad, and others I didn't recognize. My pulse quickened, but I didn't answer. Not yet. I called my best friend, Tanya Martinez, who'd been my rock since college. She picked up on the first ring, her voice urgent. Tanya explained Aunt Rhonda posted a final fitting photo of the family at the venue. I was visibly absent. A comment asked, "Where's Sabrina?" Rhonda replied, "She's not coming. Family decision." Kendra saw it, demanded answers. Zachary admitted the truth. She cancelled at the venue, leaving guests stunned as the estate's chandeliers dimmed on an empty event. Tanya got the details from her cousin, a server at the venue, who'd overheard the chaos. I sat on the cottage steps, phone in hand, processing. Mom's voicemails pleaded for me to call back, her tone frantic, saying the family was falling apart. Dad left one message, gruff, asking me to fix this. A number I didn't know. Likely Kendra's left a short, clipped voicemail. Just my name and a pause. I didn't return any calls. The weight of their choice, their silence when I needed them, pressed against the news. Karma had struck, swift and unyielding, but it didn't feel like victory. I stayed on the porch, journaling until the stars appeared. The ocean's rhythm steadied me, each wave a reminder I'd chosen this escape for a reason. Tanya texted updates, whispers of the cancelled wedding spreading, guests leaving in confusion. I didn't ask for more, didn't want to dive into the drama. I'd spent years trying to fit into their world, only to be pushed out. Now, their world was cracking, and I was here, in a quiet cottage, finding my own strength. The calls kept coming, but I let them ring, the sound fading into the night. Back in Charlotte, the fallout unfolded. Tanya's updates revealed the ripple effects. Zachary lost 2 major clients. Both were business associates of Kendra's father. His firm questioned his judgment, their trust shaken by the wedding's abrupt collapse. The Charlotte legal community, tightly knit with Kendra's family, began distancing themselves, their whispers loud enough to dent his reputation. Kendra, furious at the lie behind my absence, ended the engagement, returning his ring with a note he never shared. Her family, influential and unforgiving, pulled their connections, leaving Zachary scrambling to salvage his career. Mom and Dad faced their own reckoning. Neighbors, aware of the cancelled wedding, asked pointed questions at the grocery store, their stares heavy with judgment. Aunt Rhonda's post, now deleted, had spread too far. Screenshots circulated, fueling gossip about the family decision to exclude me. Mom called daily, her voicemails tearful, saying they never meant to hurt me, that they thought I'd understand. Dad's messages were sterner, urging me to talk, insisting we could fix things as a family. I listened to each one, my finger hovering over the reply button, but I didn't call back. Their choice to stand by Zachary's decision had cut too deep. Aunt Rhonda tried reaching out, her texts long and apologetic, claiming she didn't know her post would cause such chaos. She said she'd only meant to share the family's joy, not expose their flaws. I read her words, my jaw tight, remembering every time she'd praised Zachary while overlooking me. Her apology felt like too little, too late, a bandage on years of dismissal. I didn't respond, letting her messages pile up, unanswered. I stayed in the Outer Banks for the week, the cottage my sanctuary. Mornings were for coffee on the porch, watching waves crash, my journal filling with thoughts of freedom. I walked the beach at dusk, the horizon wide, my steps lighter without the weight of their expectations. Tanya kept me updated, her texts a lifeline, detailing how Zachary's firm had sidelined him to smaller cases. His name no longer whispered for partner. Kendra had moved to New York, her socials now private, her absence a silent rebuke. The family's perfect image, Zachary's charm, Mom and Dad's pride. Aunt Rhonda's boasts had cracked, exposed as fragile. I made a choice. Back in Charlotte, I blocked their numbers, Mom, Dad, Zachary, Aunt Rhonda, not out of spite, but survival. I'd spent years chasing their approval, shrinking myself to fit their narrative. No more. My apartment became my haven, my freelance work my anchor. Clients praised my latest articles. My creative circle planned a gallery show, their support steady where family had faltered. I didn't need their validation to know my worth, I'd build it, piece by piece, in words and quiet moments. The fallout taught me something raw. Family isn't owed loyalty if it demands your erasure. Zachary's ambition, Mom and Dad's bias, Aunt Rhonda's carelessness, they'd all chosen a facade over me. Their consequences weren't my triumph, but they were justice, a mirror held to their choices. I didn't gloat, didn't celebrate. I moved forward, my life no longer tethered to their approval, my sketchbook filled with new drawings. My stories found bigger platforms, and I woke each day knowing I was enough. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you for sticking with me through the hurt, the betrayal, and the reclaiming of my voice. Your time means everything, and I'm grateful for every moment you've spent here. The lesson: never let anyone dim your light to make theirs shine brighter. Family, friends, or anyone else, your worth isn't theirs to define. Share your thoughts below. Tell me about a time you stood up for yourself, or drop where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button for more stories of resilience and reckoning. Let's keep this conversation going.